This is the sound of hope. A spontaneous chorus raised by a group of friends who have lived through one of the most horrific events in their lifetime. They are truly giving God all the praise. But there is one young lady here, singing the lead, who has overcome much more than anyone could ever imagine. Ferlandie Fabius is a walking miracle. I was inside my house, says Ferlandie, when the earthquake started. The ground was almost moving like a snake. So I was so scared and I was trying to escape, but I didn't have time to make it to the door. The building caved in on her. I was hand in hand with one of my cousins, and I had a sister in the house, but she stayed in her room. For the next 2 hours, Ferlandie lay under the rubble of her house, her cousin laying lifeless on top of her. She would later learn that her sister had died in the other room, but Ferlandie didn't give up hope that someone would find her alive. It was hard for them to realize that I was still alive, Ferlandie says, because I was really immobilized. The only limb I had to move was this arm, so when they came by to rescue me, they thought I was already dead. Because I couldn't talk, because I was so tired, so I moved my hand, and that's when they realized that I was still alive. She suffered not just injuries to her body, but also to her mind. Afraid of loud noises and entering large buildings, she needed help, and that's where your generosity came in. Ferlandie and her friends are part of the leadership development program run by Compassion Haiti. In the days and weeks following the earthquake, you gave to Crossroads missions. And in a joint effort with Compassion Canada, we were able to fund emergency response efforts in the country and bring vital programs like post-trauma care to many young people affected by the earthquake, like Ferlandie.
Another activity that is part of this whole response, disaster response, is an income generation activity that we are running.
That income generation activity that Ellissaint is talking about is another emergency response initiative your donations helped make possible. Many Compassion families lost their businesses after the earthquake, so small microcredit loans were distributed to get them back on their feet. Darline Cadet was one of the recipients. My business was affected, says Darline. As a matter of fact, I have lost my mother and all the customers I had previously. I lost them. Everything was gone. Thanks to this microcredit, she says, now I am relaunching and I'm getting back my customers. For Paul-Henri Clesca, who has one child in the Compassion program, losing his side street business was difficult for his family. But after receiving the microcredit loan, he was able to reopen as well. The microcredit program that I'm involved in, says Paul-Henri, has helped me that right this very week, my children are already in school. A parachurch ministry, Compassion prides itself on coming alongside local churches, some of whom have their own schools, and partnering with them as children get sponsored and receive an education rooted in biblical teachings. But with 235 projects in the country, when the earthquake hit, suddenly Compassion was responsible for not just making sure the daily needs of their children were met, but also making sure emergency relief was available as well.
Don't forget, we have to have business as usual going on. We've got 65, 70,000 children we have to care for every day. On top of that, we now have the worst natural disaster this country has ever had in its history. So we have to continue helping all of those children, plus add to that all the additional disaster response work. That's where this extra money was needed. And through the kindness of God's people in Canada and around the world, we've raised enough money to do that.